Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of In the Spotlight. I'm Mike Kenichi. I'm very excited today because I've been a fan of hers for many years. You name it, she's done it. Dancing, singing, acting. She's done everything you could possibly do, and she's very gifted and talented at it. And you can't think of the series Solid Gold without thinking of her name, the one and only Miss Deborah Jenssen. And Deborah, I want to thank you for coming on today. It's a real honor.
Wow, that's quite an introduction. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for coming on. So, Deborah, let me ask you. I know, like at age 3, it's hard to really remember what the first, few months of dancing was like for you. But you did start at 3 years old. Do you have any recollection about that? And talk about that a little bit.
Oh yeah, my parents bought me a piano. They put it down in the cellar, and then they hung up a pair of pointe shoes. And so it was just like, make your choice, pointe shoes or the piano. And I picked the pointe shoes. So I just diligently was going to my Little Red Dancing School every week. And I got more and more into it, and realized I had a big passion for it, and I loved it. And it just grew from there. It didn't stop, never stopped. When I was old enough to drive, I was driving myself to my lessons. Went to the Eastman School of Music in Rochester, which is a more refined place to study, and then really decided, that I really wanted to do this as a career, which was, at that time people were looking at me like, hobby would be good, recreation would be good, career no, not really, But that's how I got going, and I couldn't wait to get out of high school to go to college to study dance, ironically,
Right.
But that's what I did. And I studied at the Boston Conservatory of Music.
Right.
And from there, I was like either New York or LA. I decided LA.
Right. And Deborah, one of the things, no matter what it is, acting, dancing, sports, whatever it might be, there's always mentors along the way who really influence you, teachers, whoever. And I mean, I think about like Tim Draper, Michelle Boucher. Talk about them a little bit, because they were very influential in your career.
Very, very. Michelle, she's still, I don't keep in touch with her as much as I should, but we love each other profoundly. I mean, she's just a very big influence in my life as far as dancing goes. She was a great teacher. She gave me a big push, gave me a lot of support. She did things like, my first talent show, she choreographed a big number for me, just her and I. That was a lot to ask for a teacher to dedicate all that time with a student for my high school talent show or junior high talent show, I don't know. Meanwhile, the kids in the back of the stadium pushed over the speakers, the monitors, so that I was dancing to a blur. And I kept on dancing, I didn't stop. It was to that song, Get Ready, Rare Earth. Get ready, because here I come.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That was like definitely a memory. But, she taught me, and they all taught me, show must go on. You never stop. Something happens like that, you just got to keep going. So I did. But yes, Michelle, Tim Draper kind of like picked me up from the Little Red Dancing School, brought me to the Eastman School of Music, where there was like, I think her name was Oliver, the director at the time, and, doing the Nutcracker and all that stuff, and very ballet, which is my roots thing. So I started studying there a little bit. It was a little bit more prepping me for the pro stuff, I think.
Right.
Yeah, Tim was great. We hung out a lot as friends too. And, Aline Charles, who was the owner of the Little Red Dancing School, she had a daughter.
Lynn, correct? Right.
Lynn. Yeah. And she was just so beautiful. I mean, just physically beautiful woman, but I mean, a beautiful dancer as well at ballet. And she went to the Boston Conservatory of Music. And I'm like, that got me, when you're younger, you have all these influences, and they're very, very strong at that age. And it was just like, that's where I had to go. You know, I wanted to study there where she studied. And so I did. Yeah.
So, Deborah, one of the things that fascinates me about dancers, because you see it more and more now. I mean, it is so popular with kids. So many kids do recitals year round, do all these different things. It's just the work that goes into it. People don't realize that. The thing that, like I said, I find remarkable is when I see that these are like 8 or 9 year old kids and they have to change in and out of costumes, get ready for their next numbers and stuff like that. And then they go out there and they perform, like pros out there. It's just unbelievable. And that's really a credit, not only to those young kids, but also, like I said, to the instructors, because I mean, it's not easy to keep the attention span of 8, 9, and 10-year-old kids.
No, but they have to have, I mean, you have to have, that kid has something inside of him that loves that already. It's just, that's just how it is. You see these like videos all over Instagram of babies and they put on music and they're just like going crazy to it and bouncing around. I mean, that's one of those prospective kids that's going to be like that. It's just, my daughter was like that. She was very into ballet in the beginning. I threw her into classes at 2 years old. And then, the ballet was like, people would like, look at her feet, look at this, look at that, and she was like, I want more. I want more, and I'm like, okay, well, like, what do you mean more? She was like, maybe gymnastics, more. I want more bending. I want more this. I want more throwing myself around. I'm like,
right.
I want more pain. Okay. All right. No. So, she was on a competitive gymnastics team, the youngest girl, at a great school, in California until she was almost 12. She left when she was 11 because she kept getting hurt. But that's the whole thing. But when all these little girls were having sleepovers and doing all the things that little girls do, these girls were in the gym 20 hours a week.
Right.
So it's and the dancing these days is equivalent. I mean, it's gotten to such a different level.
Right.
That is just really pushing and pushing and pushing. It's like, wow. And that just makes it more a deciding factor. Do you really want to do this? Are you going to be that committed to do this? Because this is what it's going to take,
Yeah. And one of the things, you can't do dance without music. It's impossible. And I think as early as maybe you were 5, 6 years old, you would close your bedroom door and you'd play Led Zeppelin songs. So you were really into, playing records. So the love for music was there at a young age as well.
Yeah, I love music. My mother, I remember Sunday mornings are very like special in my head for me because very, very wonderful memory, because my dad was a professional wrestler, and a lot of times he would be out of town and he would come home Sunday, and my mother, and they're both Italian, my mother would be making the sauce because that's what we had on Sunday, and the pasta sauce. But my mother would play all these musicals like South Pacific. That was one that I remember specifically. And my father, he loved opera. He loved opera. So between my mother singing along with these, songs while she's making the sauce, and my father, begging for one of us 3 kids to massage his feet before he got up, I mean, it was just, that's the way it was. And we would hear this, the music was like blasting. But then again, my mother loved and my father was a great dancer. He was like a Tom Jones. Okay.
Yeah.
He loved to move like that. And he would love, they loved the Beatles, and I would hear this music all the time in the house. So I got it at a young age. Thank God, because I don't know, I mean, but yeah, I loved classic rock music, and I still, that's my roots, and that's what I love today.
Yeah. And I mean, you grew up in such an era too, where music was just exploding. I mean, it was always good. God. It was always good, but God, when the era you grew up in, I mean, that's what people loved. I mean,
Yeah.
It was
It's
life
called
and death with
classic
them
rock
music.
for a reason. It's classic. It's legendary. It's not
Yeah.
like 90s music, you know, not even like 50s music. That has their own thing too. But classic rock, I mean, it's music that will never, it doesn't seem like it's ever going to go away. All people will know it because it's never, you know,
Yeah.
done playing. I mean, my kids grew up with it. If I ask my daughter who's 25, my son who's almost 30, you know, they hear it all the time. Oh yeah, I remember that song. I remember because I was playing it in the car. I didn't play rap in the car.
Yeah.
No way. It's like you listen to my music. I'm driving. So, you know, and you know, so they know all that stuff.
Yeah, that, and I mean, you still see it today. I mean, you were talking about young kids. You could see 17 and 18-year-olds, and they've got an AC/DC shirt or,
Oh yeah.
you know, the Beatles, whatever it might be. I mean, they appreciate that music because,
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a music fan and you really like you said, classic rock, you know all those bands. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter how much time has passed.
Oh yeah. I used to love closing my doors, and I would get the salt and pepper shakers, and I'd sing into Janis and Zeppelin and just all of them. So many, you know, record player. That was like, you know, I mean, so much better than a cell phone. You know, it's like
Oh,
when
yeah.
people like, yeah, it's just like that record player. Just wonderful times.
Yeah, it really
Yeah.
was. And, you know, you really appreciate the time you grew up in because I just always felt like it was a better time, especially music. It
Yeah.
definitely was. So,
But you know, music
yeah.
those days, I mean, it really took you, I mean, there were lyrics. They might have insinuated this or that, you know, but they didn't tell all. They didn't like exploit anything. It was just like use your imagination. Or, you know, it just, you could identify with the way you were feeling about everything.
Yeah.
You know, if you liked a guy and he didn't like you back, or some girlfriend that you had a fight with, or someone that you really loved dearly and they got hurt. I mean, all these songs, they had such incredible lyrics about real life that you could really, really relate to. And
Yeah.
as a child growing up, I mean, that's like really important. Today's music, you know, I don't even. I remember, you know, when my son came to me singing a 50 Cent song. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the name, but you know, about the lollipop and something. He goes, "Mom, you know, that's really not about a lollipop." And he's like this, you know, he's a little kid. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, and I knew, and I'm like, oh no, what's it about? And he pointed down there, and I'm like, okay. And he, you know, but it's just like the music, everything changed. You know, our kids got just blasted with all this stuff that we're trying to, you know, bring them up to be a normal, decent person. And yes, you know, there's going to be this crap in the world at you know, at some point, but at least you'll be old enough to know exactly what it is, you know, and deal with it how you want to deal with it. But yeah, just a whole different change, a real different change.
I also think too, Deborah, that one of the things I really appreciated about music back then is you had to hope that you would hear it on the radio. It's not like today. You could just download anything you want. You could go on YouTube
Right.
and type any
Oh,
song.
I love
When
this
you,
song.
yeah,
Yeah.
like we're gonna bring up Tina Turner in a few minutes. But one of the things, I mean, when I was a young kid, I might have been in second or third grade, and when that "What's Love Got to Do with It" came on, and it was popular at the time, and you wanted to hear it, you would just get that great feeling. It's on the radio, and you're going to listen to it for the next 4 minutes, and it was huge. And I just feel like now you could have access to any song, so it's not the same feeling because you could hear it over and over. When back then you appreciated it if you heard it twice a week.
A whole different thing. When do you walk around going, I really want to hear that song, and go and plug it into YouTube or whatever and hear it? Because it's not registering like that. It's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
You know, whether like you're sitting in your car and all of a sudden you hear that song, and it's like, how refreshing, how beautiful it is to hear this song when you totally did not expect it, and it brings back all that. Yeah,
right.
I know.
You know, I just I get it. I mean, listen, we all grow up in the eras we grow up in, and I don't fault any of the kids. I mean, what today's music is what they're used to listening to.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's just the way it is. Couple of other influential people in your life. I think of Martha Graham, of course, Merce Cunningham.
Right, you really did your homework.
So talk about them a little bit because they
Yeah.
were very instrumental in your career.
Well, now when I was in Boston, yeah, because I mean that's all I was like drill hard sergeant studying classical and modern. So modern was the contemporary. So now they call it contemporary, but that's what the modern is. And it was Cunningham, Alvin Ailey,
Yeah, another
Martha
great one.
Graham, and I would go see those performances, and then I would go to New York when they have like master classes, like and you know try to get in whenever I could and take those master classes. But that's pretty much at the conservatory where I studied. We did do a lot of Graham technique and Cunningham technique. So that and a lot of that was a great influence for me too, because at that time, you know, ballet was my first love, but you know, I felt myself branching like a tree. I wanted to branch out of it. I wanted to get into other forms. My body did, you know. It was just like when I first got a taste of jazz, like Luigi style jazz, it was like, whoa, I was blown away. It was just, I felt like total freedom, you know, it was just like unbelievable. But
yeah,
total freedom with lines,
yeah.
you know, just total technique as well.
Right,
So,
right. And the thing is too is I know that ballet, like you loved that and that was your passion, but
yeah.
jazz really changed you forever. I mean, you fell in love with jazz. So I mean,
Yeah.
how what's the feeling like when you get up there and you're dancing to that? Yeah, it has to be a rush that you just can't describe.
Because it's just not one way of doing something, and you feel something, and you can just go with it and feel it and relate that. And with modern dance, you can do that too. With contemporary, very very well. I mean, even more so. You know, it's just a beautiful opening up of your soul out. You know, to like show. And that's a beautiful thing of it. That's the beautiful part of dance. It's just like, you know, the ballet is phenomenal, and I think that for foundation and training for anyone to be a dancer of any kind is absolute. You know, you have to have it. You have to have it. But I think it's just that, you know, foundation. I mean, you get into a ballet company, what do they, you know, being there till you're like 20. Bye. Yeah. See you later. Here comes a 16-year-old. You know, I mean, and that's pretty much, you know, and it's pretty much, in a way, masochistic. I mean, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. But I mean, to be on your toes, you know, all day, every day, and all the bleeding and all the wrapping and all the bleeding again and wrapping and all the fractures and all the sprains and strains and whoo, you know, and you pay for it. You pay for it.
Definitely. Yeah.
No matter what, you know, it's an art form, and just like any athlete, football player, you know, you go through that brutal thing every single day. What do you think? Your body's just gonna, you know, you're just gonna stop, and your body's gonna go, oh, thank you.
Well, yeah. And I also think too, Deborah, I also think you had to sacrifice a lot of your weekends, because in order to do this and to excel at it and be successful, again, you do have to devote a lot of time to it, because you got to think about this. You have, when you're in school, you got to make sure you're getting your schoolwork done, you're studying, stuff like that. But then you're doing this as a hobby, but you're also trying to achieve something with it. So there is a lot of sacrifice that comes, and that's where the commitment part comes in. Yeah,
my parents had no idea that I was going to take it to that level. And you know, when I started writing the schools and I want to audition for this one and I want to audition for that one, you know, my mother's like, just, you know, work at Kodak and make a steady paycheck, you know. And I'm like, no, I can't see myself doing that, you know. But I mean, by the grace of God, it all worked out. And, you know, that I'm a firm believer in following your dreams and realizing that they can happen. But yes, as a child growing up, I was listening to my music and I was dancing, and that's really all I cared about. That's really all I cared about. I could care less about my history classes, my earth science. I don't know how I passed everything just to get to college.
Yeah.
Because I really couldn't stand high school. I hated it. I couldn't wait to get out.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm probably not setting a good example for any kids. But the thing is, I really, my mind was set on getting an education was something that I thought was going to serve me a purpose. Something that I knew I loved. And then it made all the sense in the world to me, Otherwise, although, when you do start growing up and you get older, I wish I would have paid attention to my history classes more, because they're very important.
Yeah.
Especially now.
I think a lot of times you come to realize that when you get older, but at the time,
no. Yeah.
Again, dance, you're motivated because guess what? It's something that you love to do. When we go to school as young kids, it's something we have to do. So it takes a while to motivate us. But let me ask you this, Deborah. What would you say was your first big break? And I mean, like, it could have been something that was like a small part, but what would you say was that first big audition you got or part you got, whatever? I know you danced at the Grammys and I believe the American pageants and stuff like that. But what was like the first big break for you, would you say?
Well, when I got to LA, like one of my first jobs was going back east again. And that was like with a small touring company. And I think it was for some old timer guys like Cab Calloway, Milton Berle, things like that.
Yeah.
They were old when I was starting out. So, but things, so I can't consider that big, but it was just like I took them because I just wanted to get into the circuit of how things were done, because I knew nothing really. I think my first bigger break in that whole scheme of things was with Kevin Carlisle doing one of the Barry Manilow specials, and I did 3 of them, but the first one, I think that was a big deal for me because it was on the lot of Paramount or Universal or whatever, one of those who did his shows. So it was working on the lot, and it was a show that had all these production numbers in it because Barry Manilow was all into these big production numbers, and Kevin Carlisle was the choreographer, and he ended up actually directing for Barry later on. But he was very influential to me because he hired me for 2 other Barry Manilow specials. He hired me for King of the Gypsies special. He hired me for Patrice Arthur special, who I guess the girl that was in Golden Girls. And I actually sang on that special in the studio.
But, nice.
But I sang special. So, I mean, just all those things. Kevin gave me a lot of work. I can't remember when Xanadu came in. I don't know if that was okay. So that could have been after the Barry Manilow specials or before. I'm not sure. But my big, those are all big. Yeah. Those are all good and big and fine and everything. But the biggest for me, besides I'll go the before, was Tina.
Yes. And I'm glad you brought her up because we'll get into her. And of course, unfortunately, she passed a few weeks ago. But what people don't realize about Tina Turner, number one, I think she doesn't have to take a backseat to anybody. She's up there with anybody as far as music goes. But think about this. She was pretty much a star before the 80s. And then in the 80s, this is a woman who's in her 40s now. And in the 80s, it was a young person's game back then. And she was able to, change with the times. And the music she put out in the 80s, I thought was her best work. And I mean, simply the best. Private Dancer, We Don't Need Another Hero, What's Love Got to Do with It? I mean, the woman just was a musical genius.
You Better Be Good to Me. I always loved that song too. That whole Private Dancer, that whole album. I was in Italy at the time, and all I did was play that. I had my cassette player. I had everywhere I went. I was in Capri, Italy, they call it, and I just, that's all I played. That's all I played. I loved that woman. I truly loved her. She, I never seen anyone work so hard, and she was so committed and so dedicated, and she stuck to her guns, and she demanded respect. Demanded it. It was just like, yeah, that's the way it was. She was very, because of everything that she had been through before, she just wanted to make herself clear, which I didn't understand, but I was going to understand it. I mean, anyway, until you understand what her life, kind of was. But she worked hard. She needed to have that. When people have to notice
validation.
Yes, validation.
Yeah.
She had to have that. She had to have that, and she worked so hard for it. And even though people would be like, all over her, and you're just like, she needed it. She needed it more. She needed it more. I think because it was so pressed for so long when it could have been out there, and other people might have been getting the credit for it, and should have been her.
And I'd be willing to bet, Deborah, that experience, being able to tour with her, had to just be like a once in a life thing. And I would say, I don't want to speak for you, but I would say that would probably be at the top of your career. That would have to be first, and everything else comes after that.
Yeah, because I was young. I was a rookie, pretty much.
Yeah.
And to be thrown into that whole thing. They flew me into New Orleans for the audition. That was very, very exciting. I got to meet all the guys, everybody in the band, and she sits down with with Kenny, who's her pianist, and starts making me sing stuff. And I was like, I was a nervous wreck, but I was having so much fun because I'm not like, it's Tina and going on the road, and it's like I didn't know anything about any of this stuff, and I very soon learned that I don't like being on the road. Did not like being on the road. And she wasn't crazy about it either, because she would do a couple weeks and then go home. Couple weeks, go home. Couple weeks, go home. That kind of thing. And that's how we traveled all over the United States. It wasn't like we were out for a month at a time or 2 months at a time ever. And then, and I was loving it, and it was great. And I worked so hard for her to say, that was good. That was better. But, I'm just like her. It's just like, I want to work so hard for you. Like, I'm a pleaser. That's all I want to do is please you.
Yeah.
But I need you to notice it. You know what I mean? Like, give me a little bit. And she knew it. She knew it. She knew that about me. And I crack up about it. And I knew it then too. But she looked at me and she saw a lot of like what I was going through, what she went through. And she would give me little bits and pieces at a time. Just little bits and pieces. That was better. She wanted me to sing Shake Your Tail Feather like the whitest white girl in the world. And I'm trying to sing like Shake Your Tail Feather. She goes, no. You don't want to be like, you don't want to be like, you want to be Shake Your Tail Feather, like, white.
Yeah.
And I was like, gosh, I wanted to, and it was like, that was hard for me, because I'm like, what does she mean? Because I have a lot of soul, it's just like, I probably wasn't doing, the black thing right, but, to say it as white, I almost didn't know what that meant, so it was funny. But she would be laughing on stage at me when I was be singing this, and no one knew, like afterwards, and I would be kind of like laughing too, but it was good because it kept everyone in character. And she would look at me, she goes, it's getting better. I'm like, oh, thank God. But she wouldn't say, that was great, that was good. When I knew it was way better, she would say, it's getting better. I loved her. I mean, she taught me so much. I mean, the endurance, the running off stage, 2 minutes to change your costume, like literally 2 minutes to come on and be totally calm and sing a harmony part that's a slow song. And you're like, just and drenched, just it was a great learning experience.
Yeah, really. And the other thing, I know you had mentioned you weren't a fan of the 90s music, but this, I Don't Want to Fight that she came out with in 1993. I mean, again, she was able to, no matter what era it was, she was able to make her mark in that era. I mean, that song's phenomenal. And that's what I always felt about her, when she didn't just have a song. She had a hit every time she put something out there.
Once she changed her manager, and I was there when she changed her manager. We were in San Francisco. It was after the show. It was Roger Davies. That was the guy who changed everything for her. And all of a sudden, you know, What's Love Got to Do with It? Private Dancer, all of it. Fantastic. The best. You know, every single one. Every single one. So that was the thing. Someone who knew exactly what she needed and how to get it to her, how to give it to the people from her. You know.
So let's talk about Solid Gold, because I gotta tell you right now, I remember that would always be on Saturday afternoons when I was a kid. You could watch it somewhere. It was always syndicated somewhere. It was on some channel. But I have to ask you this, Deborah, because I always thought about this, and this is something that I was always curious about. There were weeks where you had to perform the same songs. And I asked myself this: when you have to perform the same songs like that, you could only do so much dancing before you have to change it up and try to keep. How were you able to stay fresh for the same song over and over, week after week? Because I would think that would frustrate you as a dancer.
A little bit sometimes, like A Woman in Love, Barbra Streisand.
Yes.
Oh my God. But the great thing about Kevin was that he, you know, you're not going to do the same choreography. That's lame. You know, just like people don't want to see that on TV. Oh, I remember that last week. Or, you know, the kids that are trying to emulate you and do the routine. She did that last week. No, so it was always different. And the musical director, Michael Miller, he always tried understanding what we were going through. If a song was in the top 10 countdown for 10 weeks, for example. That's a long time. So, and some of them went on longer. So God, I have 2 huskies and they're like being annoying right now. So it's only 90 degrees out and they think they want to go outside. But anyway, you know, and so he tried to make it different. And he would also, you know, instead of using the same piece of music, he would, you know, switch it to a different, you know, the bridge of the song or a different chorus, a different verse, or, you know, a chorus if you hadn't used it before. So there were ways of making it different. But, you know, for the most part, it's just like we would hear that song and go, oh, you know, seriously. Some of them were, you know, we didn't mind. It just depended, you know, but that was one of the things of that show. You had to, oh, it's on here again. It's on here again. You know, okay, we're going to dance to it again. And, you know, Kevin, as I said, and Anita, they were great about, okay, who danced to this last week? We'll switch it up, or we'll make it a trio. We'll make it a solo. We'll make it a duo. I mean, they did every single thing they possibly could to make, you know, give it some versatility, at least.
Yeah, and think about this. Think about this, too. The 80s really, I felt like they gave a lot of recognition to dancers in the 80s because there were so many types of shows that revolved around dancing. Fame, which I loved that show. I thought that was a tremendous show. Now, me being a kid, I was like 9 or 10 years old. There was a kids show called Kids Incorporated, and that kind of allowed people like Martika and Stacey Ferguson, who is known as Fergie, kind of show their skills as singers. And then you had the dancers like Mario Lopez, and then, like I said, Solid Gold. So, I mean, you had all these different dance shows in the 80s that I thought, like, it was nice to see because I really think they helped popularize dancing. I mean, it was popular, but it really took off in the 80s.
It did. It did. I know there was oh, and that was older. There was what did they have dancers on? They always used to get us mixed up too. Dean Martin had a group of dancers, or were they singers? Gold diggers, I think they were.
Yeah.
You're the gold diggers. I'm like, no. No. That was before. you know, Soul Train. No, that was before. That was before. But still, you know, there was a lot of adding up and building up. And yes, you're right. There was a lot of stuff going on, and there was a dance fever too.
Yeah, dance fever.
Right. Yeah. A lot of like little takeoffs. Like I know they threw me in Solid Gold Hits too. You know, so in the fourth season, the last season that I was with them, I did both shows, like just bouncing off the walls, back and forth, back and forth. I think I didn't have a problem doing it because it was a change of pace for me. It was a change with everything. It was just like I was kind of like coming to the end of it for me. The marriage was kind of like ending, but then they said, you know, Brad was like the producer. He's like, well, Solid Gold Hits, you know, we're going to put you over there and can you do both? And I'm like, yeah, I can do both. But I was so happy to just be a part of something, you know, different. It was a little more rockish.
Yeah.
You know, the choreography was different. They had Jerry Evans, who I loved working with, but totally different style, you know, all that. So.
And you talk about people that you worked with, and I always believed this, and it was true for you, that you never could stop learning and you could always get better with stuff. And I think of Ron Fields, because he was the type of guy that made you perform your steps like you were on camera every time. So even when you weren't on camera, he would make you do that. So talk about him a little bit.
Okay, so when I came to Los Angeles, you know, you try to figure out where all the auditions are, who are the dancers that work all the time. You're just trying to like figure this out, because I literally came here knowing nothing at all. Getting the Variety magazine, and I think it was Drama Log, every day, looking at the auditions that way, when the real good auditions were already being, you know, taken care of by agencies and other things, and I had no idea. So but then I started working with taking class with Lester Wilson, who's another great choreographer, and working with Lester Wilson, he brought me into his group of dancers that were his group that he liked working with, and through that group of dancers I met a few girls that were just so great and so supportive. We had so much fun, and they were all great dancers, and Lester was crazy guy. Crazy. Just so much fun. He did shows for like Barry Gordy, Motown, and we did put on performances for him. But what was I getting at with Lester Wilson? Okay, so Lester Wilson was another choreographer, famous. Unfortunately, he passed away as well. But those girls that I danced with, they would like feed my name to someone and someone else and someone else. Like one of the girls was the one who referred me to Tina to audition.
Yeah.
One of the girls, another girl was referred me to Ron Fields to do the Golda and Liza special together. And so yeah, I had to audition, but I pretty much, you know, because I was recommended, I was at the top of that little list that they have, and got in. But, you know, they didn't tell me, you know, I was so happy that I was like working with these girls who are not rookies. I am. And I'm in with these, you know, big sisters of mine, and this guy who's from New York. He was just so serious, but great choreographer, like a lot of Fosse stuff he would put in his choreography. But I'll never forget it. It was just like stomping the foot, putting down something, making a big noise, and just saying, look, you don't do this like this. This is the way we do things here. And I mean, really but that's how I was brought up, and that's how I was disciplined in the world of dance from day one.
Yeah.
You know, it was just like they would walk around with rulers. And if your butt was sticking out too far, you'd get whacked. If your ribs were sticking out too far, you'd get a hand like knocking the wind out of you almost, you know? And so for someone to talk to you like that, it wasn't like it is today where, you know, I'm going to get all offensive, or, you know, I'm going to sue you, or, you know, that's not correct, or you can't do that. No, this is the art of the work that you're doing. This is the guy who's showing you what he wants done, and this is how he wants you to do it. Very
Yeah.
simple. You either want the job and you do it like that, or bye, give it to
Right.
someone else. You know, I mean, for me, it was very simple, and I think things are so white and black like that, and so right and so simplified. If you just get it and don't have to put up a big, big fuss. Like, oh, well, I am doing it like that. No, you don't complain. You don't start talking. You just deliver.
Yeah.
That's what I'm supposed to be there to deliver for this person, and I did, and we had a great time, and it was a great special. It was really a great special, but we had to, in rehearsal, you work things out where you're not going to give it your 100% every single time you do it. Oh my God, that would knock you out.
Yeah.
Well, but that's what he wanted. That's what he wanted.
Yeah.
Every time we did it. Now, when we're learning it, that's different. We're learning it. We're trying to figure it out. But then once we learned it, and every time we did it, it was like we were on camera.
Yeah. And listen, at the end of the day, it obviously helped you a lot in your career.
Oh,
look where you are today. So
it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah. And you've gotten to work with so many different people. I remember, I want to say it was Pepsi, and if it was Coke, I apologize. But I remember you did a Pepsi commercial with Lionel Richie, I believe. And was it Pepsi?
I think it was Pepsi.
Yeah. And everybody that I've ever talked to said Lionel Richie was one of the sweetest men ever, like nicest guy ever. Nice. So just talk, but you're getting to work with a guy. Like when you think of the Commodores, you got to think of Lionel Richie. Just talk about getting to work with people like that, because there's got to be that fan inside of you too sometimes. So that had to be just wonderful.
It was. He was a very nice person. You meet some people who are very down to earth, and they don't have that celebrity thing about them at all, or some people walk around and they're checking out everything while you're trying to talk to them, but they don't hear anything you say. They're more into, the superficial part of things. But he, like Dionne Warwick, she was like that too.
Yeah.
Lionel, I worked with him on Solid Gold as well, and he was just always super nice. Just like treating you like you're the neighbor across the street.
Yeah. Which
very,
just
very
goes
nice.
Which just goes to show, they don't forget where they came from. They know at one time they were trying to make it in the business.
Yeah.
So they understand it. And then I think about others that you really raved about, and I think about the Wilson sisters, because they were probably your favorites to work with, correct? You enjoyed that so much.
Well, if I was a groupie, I'm not a groupie, but if I was a groupie, I would have been all over those girls. I had admired those girls from when I was in Boston and Magic Man came out. That was like wow, when I heard that song, I heard her voice, that power.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. It was, and the range, and it was just like, and then when she sang sweet stuff, her voice was just so angelic. And her sister, the way she played the guitar and kind of like in the background, but not really, but
yeah. And a great
totally
band,
different entities. Yeah, great band altogether. So when they came on the show twice, and when they came on the show, I was just like, I'm a dancer on the show. I'm just a dancer on the show. I'm sorry, I got to ask for pictures. But they were nice. They were nice. They were nice. And Howard, the guitar player, he was nice. Everybody was nice. It was great. And I was really glad that I got to meet him. I got to meet a lot of people. Gene Simmons was another really, really nice guy.
Yeah.
Brian Adams, nice guy.
Yeah.
John Cougar, wonderful guy.
Right.
All those guys.
And you brought up the play of a few minutes ago, but getting to work with another one that we lost not too long ago, Olivia Newton-John, because
oh my God,
she was just as talented as anybody. I could listen to Physical all the time and never get bored of it, and that's just one of many things she did. But that song, Suddenly, that's enough for me to watch that whole thing, because she was just so phenomenal. Just talk about her a little bit.
She was one of a kind. She was that that sweet, beautiful girl next door. I mean, she was just, I mean, you just wanted to go up and hug her, that kind of person.
Yeah.
And it would be okay. But she was just very, very sweet, very innocent. And I know people go, oh yeah, that's the way she looked, but she really innocent. I mean, she really was like that. She was just really a sweet natured, good upbringing, you know, just, she was just a doll. She was a doll. And I introduced her to Matt Lattanzi. Matt Lattanzi on Xanadu was my dance partner in the beginning. Then they changed it. They had me dance with Daryl, who was this guy who just had muscles popping it. He was like a cartoon character body. You've never seen a body like this on a guy. He looked like it was all drawn in, like, you know, incredible. But Matt would always be talking to me saying, you know, could you introduce, do you think you could introduce me to her? And I'm like, Olivia, you want me to introduce her to her? Yeah, I want to. And I'm like, okay, you know, okay. And so, I mean, I was in good with Kenny, because I had done a lot of stuff with Kenny Ortega too, who was the choreographer. We did Olivia Newton-John special. We did Xanadu.
Yeah.
A lot of the American Music Awards were with Kenny. But I ended up introducing them. And the funny thing is that she wasn't like, you know, standoffish or anything about it at all. She totally welcomed the whole thing. So they both had this thing, you know. It was pretty funny. And Matt was a very good looking guy. And she was just like this innocent thing.
Yeah.
Like, beautiful girl. And I loved her sister. I loved her sister. She had a sister, Fleur. Wonderful, wonderful girl. And I mean, Olivia had a big party after the shoot was done, and went up to her house in Malibu, or was it in Pacific Palisades, I think, that I was up there one time. And she was just a gracious, nice person. She was really a nice person.
Yeah, and a legend, obviously, in Hollywood, music, whatever you want. I mean, she did it all. And you think about this, Deborah. Xanadu, I just went to see, it was 6th, 7th, and 8th graders back in March, and they did that production for their center stage play. And 40 years now, that thing's been out, over 40 years, and it's still as popular as it was when you start. So, I mean, that's got to make you feel good to know that you're a part of something that still exists today.
I just don't understand why it wasn't so popular when it came out. You know, that was a weird thing. It didn't make a big impact when it came out, but then little by little, then all of a sudden, it was like the music made it come out.
Yeah,
you know?
Definitely was. And speaking of something that maybe wasn't received well by the critics, but I always look at it this way. Critics they're always going to find something to complain about. But to me, Staying Alive was so huge at the box office. Yeah. That's all I need to know about that movie. And I've watched it several times. I really don't find anything bad about it. But talk about that, because I think you went for the lead role that ended up going to Winona, right?
That was another one besides Flashdance that could have been a whole turnaround in my life. But it just didn't happen. I mean, I auditioned. I remember going to the audition with Cindy. Cindy was already a good friend of mine. Cindy was the girlfriend of John Travolta in that movie. And, you know, she was like, you got this. And for me, the dancing part wasn't a problem. You know, it was just like a Saber and Denner, oh God, what is it, the choreographers? But anyway, they did a fantastic cat thing. I wore a cat costume that Ricky from Solid Gold, she made for me specifically for that audition. I still have it. But I killed that. I killed it. If there's anything I can say I'm very proud of as far as an audition goes, the way I did that number, it was long enough. It was like so up my alley. It was beautiful. And I know the producers and Sly was sitting there and they're like, you know, okay, this is what I'm talking about. So he really wanted me for the lead. He did. Yeah. They wanted the English girl to make a big difference between John Travolta. And then he said, look, he goes, let me do some work. I'm going to try to get them to have you both be from the Bronx and competing against each other, both in the same world, and so I'm like, even though I don't have that accent, I would have had to have an accent coach no matter what, because I don't talk like I'm from New York City. I'm from upstate New York. They have a whole different accent. But anyway, it was pretty amazing. I sat by the phone for 6 days. I don't know if I ate, probably not. And he just said it's not going to work out. We'll give you another little part. Just to be nice, which was nice, and I still get residuals to this day for this girl called Margaret who had a controversial dialogue about him being gay, which they probably didn't want to escalate, so it got cut even more than it was a nice little part, then it got cut more. So but it was fun. It was great. And I understood. They said that John Travolta and myself looked like we were from the same family. And I kind of got that too, because we're both Italian, and we did have that, kind of like cousin look. Yeah. Maybe. But yeah, but it was all worth it. It was fun.
Yeah, and speaking of Italian, you've gotten to see the world everywhere, and you lived in Italy, you lived in Europe for like 4 or 5 years. Just talk about those experiences, because that's one of the things about what you do is you do get to see the whole world. So talk about that.
I do. I've always had this thing where I love adventure, but there's times in my life where it's not just doing it for an adventure. Like when I went to Italy, I needed a break from Los Angeles. I was a workaholic. I quit Solid Gold, and I quit Solid Gold because the first time I had gone to Italy was the summer before the next season was starting. And I just had this revelation. It was just like, wow, look at what I'm missing. I'm just working so much that I don't see any of this. And this is phenomenal. I need to live my life a little bit more and, cut back on the working, because my working, sometimes we worked 15-hour days.
Yeah.
We'd work for 10 days straight and have 4 days off. But on those 4 days off, I'm doing videos, music videos. I'm doing workout videos. I'm doing, all this other kind of stuff. I never said no. I was a workaholic. So there came a time when something goes through lockdown in me, and I need a change. I need to change. I need to disrupt. I need to, tilt the normal stuff that's happening. So I decided to go to Italy because I had been there and I fell in love with it. And I have family over there still, like distant cousins and things like that. And I said, I have to do this. So I was going to take a year off. But from that year, it ended up to be 4.5, because I started singing, just kind of like, a weird thing happened, and I went up on stage and just sang, like an open mic night or something like that at some place, and all these people started asking me to be in their bands, so I ended up singing in bands. Then I ended up having my own band. I ended up singing in one of the most popular bands, and we toured Italy in the summer. And then I met my ex-husband, and that was right at the end. Like, I was supposed to come home. All right, so that made me stay another year. So that was like I was already there 3.5 years. I stayed another year, came back, got married, had kids, almost moved back to Italy, but decided I wanted to stay in America because I had more conveniences then. Went through the whole family thing, did a little bit more work, wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. I didn't want to have kids and not be there, and so it was all planned out. It was all great. And, bring up the kids, divorce, fast forward, another change happens. So that, I'm not dancing like I was anymore, but I did like a lot of choreography things. I did Annie, Wizard of Oz a couple times, things like that for theaters in LA. I taught at Gold Gym for 5 years. I taught ballet first, then I taught jazz. That was fun. But just keeping in it, always having to do something. But my real passion at this time was just like, I could always sing.
Right.
And now I could really get into it because, I don't have to do all these other things. And so I started doing it, and just tampering around with things. Ended up having my own band, and I ended up doing duo, trio, and the full band, and the classic rock thing, and the Sade thing. I mean, all different kinds of things. And then after a while, during COVID, it's like I'm thinking and had too much time to think, and it's just like I need a change. I need another change. It's like crazy because it just grabs onto me like, oh, I know what this means, and I'm not going to stop thinking about it. And I just needed to simplify my life, and I moved to North Carolina. Wow. Don't ask me why I moved here, because this is a crazy place. It's just like people ask me, why are you here? The people from here ask me, why are you here?
And hey, I'm beautiful weather, I'll tell you that much. Yeah.
It's so muggy right now that I feel like I can choke. And I have two Siberian Huskies, and they're like, they want to go outside, but once they get out there, they're going to be like, okay, we get it. But no, it's financial freedom for me. I was living in a huge house. My kids are older. They're doing their own thing. It's like, why do I have to stay here and be swallowed up in this?
Yeah.
I always want more freedom. And I can use what I was spending there, I could use here to travel and do things with my kids.
Right.
Which is really what I want to do. I just want to do whatever I want to do when I want to do it with them, So it's working out good so far. I think the plan is pretty much in the future, like maybe 2-3 years, we're all going to move to Italy.
Oh, okay.
Because we all love it. We all love it. And my kids could do what they're doing here, they can do it there. So, I mean, I'm just waiting. Oh, so I'm in limbo right now. But I mean, picked up the singing here too, and it was just like a piece of cake. Kind of fell in my lap, and it's great. A lot of good musicians out here. A lot of places to play. That's one thing about Wilmington. I still have the ocean 15 minutes away. There's a few of them, and they're beautiful. Yeah. The traffic is nowhere near like it was in Los Angeles. The cost of living is much less. And it's just, there's the Cape Fear River. I walk my dogs there every day.
That's awesome. And I think about this, Deborah, you brought up singing. I think one of the greatest compliments that was ever said about you, and I think it was Vanity, she worked with Prince, I believe, said that if I were a dancer, I would want to be Deborah Jenssen. And to me, that has to make you feel so good because, I mean, listen, when you're doing stuff for Prince, it's big time. And I mean, these are famous people. And for that comment to be said, I mean, that had to just make you feel like $1 million.
Yeah, she was something. I mean, first of all, I never even expected her to even confront me. It's just all in the green room, and whoever wants to hang out in the green room before they go out, instead of staying in their dressing room by themselves. And I always thought she was stunning, like beautiful, just gorgeous girl. And a Prince protege. Prince would be like standing, just standing in his doorway, just watching everybody. Nothing happening. But her, she was just like, oh, it's you. What's your name? I know you. If I was a dancer on this day, that you are the one I want to be like. I love the way you dance. I love the way you move. I love the way you feel. I was like, wow, that is like that, because you just don't expect it. And it's just like when you can admire someone, even though her job might be not all peaches and cream,
Yeah.
I mean, but she was still making it, and people were loving her, and she was a beautiful girl. God bless you. Gene Simmons was another one. He was great friends with Cher, and we got talking in the green room because he said, "Oh, everyone thinks you look like a Cher." I know. I'm like, yeah, I always got that. In high school when I had my hair down, parted in the middle and stuff like that. And he was just like, giving me compliments, And it was nice. And he was a real down to earth kind of guy too. And the funny thing is that my daughter, who's 25, she goes to all these big concerts whenever they're huge, and he was doing one of them. Kiss was doing one of them. So I'm like, I can't believe, that here I had a conversation with this guy how many years ago in my life and this kind of thing, and then
it's all full circle.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So let me ask you, Deborah. I know it's probably hard to pick one thing, but what is the thing you're most proud about in your career, if you had to pick something?
All right, it's very simple. It's a toss between Solid Gold and Tina, I would think. I want to say the singing career too, but it's not really. The singing career is just a passion of mine that's an extension of my dancing career. Just so happens I love to sing and I can, but it's not, which is a great thing that I can still be doing it, But I'd have to say, Tina, right before Solid Gold came about, we were ready to go on her Australian tour. And I always wanted to see Australia. I'm like, how great is this? I'm going to be able to go to Australia and get paid for it, and it didn't happen. But I think I made the right choice because at that time, dancers making a steady paycheck, every week for I could have done it for 7 years, I did it for 4.5, but that was unheard of.
Yeah, definitely.
It really was.
Yeah.
And we were, primetime television, and my family got to see me every week. And, it brought up a lot of other opportunities, And
it was also the days, Deborah, before YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all these platforms that so many people have today, that it makes it a little easier for them, because you could be a YouTube sensation and make a lot of money. But back when you did it, you really had to hope that right place, right time. And that says a lot about you as a performer and a talent.
Yeah. It was a whole different time. We did kind of, I can't believe we didn't have cell phones back then.
Yeah. It's hard to believe. It really is.
I remember living in the hills. Underneath the Hollywood sign is where I lived most of the time when I was in Hollywood. And I had a VW, and I would just be going in my car, coffee in hand, rolling down the hill, getting into Hollywood, doing my stuff, audition here, meet with this person, go to this agency, come up the hill, go change my clothes, go to another audition. It was nonstop all day like that. There was so much energy. There was so much life.
Yeah.
So much life. And I look at the kids today, and most of them are just absorbed, in this phone and the computer and just not getting up to walk around, or I don't know. It's just, it's mind boggling to live through all these, different changes and everything. But it's just it's also a little sad to know that they don't know what that other part was like.
Yeah, it really
and
is.
How I can compare and go, wow, this is just, you can't communicate, and you're having these anxiety issues, and you're depressed, and you don't know how to talk to people, and you don't know how to confront, and you don't know how to do this because you don't have to. You don't have to.
Yep.
You just can't deal with the issues at hand in life, because life is still happening.
Yeah.
And so how you deal with it, but if you don't know how to deal with it. And I think about the world in another 20 years, it's like, woo.
Yeah, it's.
I know. I always think about this crazy stuff, and I get wound up.
Yeah, definitely. So before we go, Deborah, what would you say to somebody that wants to be like a Deborah Jenssen and wants to be a successful dancer? Say somebody who's 13 or 14 years old. What advice would you give them?
Oh, geez. You have to have another day for that. No, it's very simple too. It's very simple. You have to love yourself. You have to believe in yourself. Sometimes that's the hardest thing to do, because when you're growing up and you're a teenager, apart from the fact that you're going to go to the part where you hate your parents. Why? It's just a teenager thing. I don't know. But, the thing is, we all go through those stages. You think you're ugly. You think you're not good enough. You're not popular enough. You want to be like that person. You want to be like this person. And you see what that other person's doing. Don't do that. Don't follow that. If you got to just take a step back and just go, I don't have to do anything but find myself. That's the first advice I could give is, if you find something that you love, then absorb yourself in it. Like a great book that you don't want to put down. You don't want it to ever end. You just have to absorb yourself in it and be faithful to it. Because then that will tell you, are you really into it, or are you just doing it because someone else is doing it? You're doing it because you're looking at all the shows and TV things and you want to be like that. You got to be honest with yourself. Can you be like that? Can you do what these people are doing? Are you doing something to see if you can?
Right.
Do you have those ways and means? Are you challenging yourself to see what that level is? And all said and done, if you're a person who has a passion that wants to do anything, whether it's dance, sing, act, I don't care what it is, draw, write. If you have that passion, you're going to know it. You're going to know it because it's something that sparks you all the time. Something that gives you a little jump all the time. It's something that makes you fantasize in your head all the time. If you have that, you have to follow it. You have to just follow it and get yourself deeper into it. But you have choices. That's the other thing that's very, very important, especially as a woman. You have choices. You can say no. So you might lose out on something.
Yep.
That's what you're going to have to live with. And you're going to be real sad when you have to do that, because the next person who said yes, but you said no, because you have different values, you have different morals, you just are built a different person. You know what's right and wrong. You have the right to say no. Very, very simple. It's very simple. You to be good at what you do not have to exploit yourself. You don't have to do anything of the sort. You have to be true to yourself. But just always remember you have a choice. Don't be afraid, because it's going to catch up with you sooner or later. If you think you got ahead and you got something over somebody and you did the right thing because sooner or later someone's going to see your real talent, but you had to get through the door this way instead, it's still going to come back to you. And you don't want that.
Right.
You don't want that. You want to know that you got where you got on your talent. That's the whole reason that the acting thing didn't work for me. I had a few of those things. And I had to say no. And I knew exactly what I was saying no to. And it makes you very angry. It makes you very frustrated, because you are good enough and you are talented enough and you could have done this and been great and it could have changed your life. Instead, you lose it to something that's going to walk in and walk out and never see again. And it doesn't make any sense to you at that time.
Right.
But, and it also made me very rebellious. So, when I got these offers, sometimes I would just say how I felt. And that's not a good thing either, but better than saying yes.
Yeah.
And selling yourself short,
Right.
so to speak. So, that's the whole thing. There's a lot of women, and I know with the Me Too movement and all that kind of stuff, a lot of it has erupted and eroded, and some of it's been taken advantage of as well. But rightly so. You have the power to say yes or no. You know who you are. If you don't get this, you're going to get something better. But at the end of the day, It's about you. It's about how you feel. It's about what you did. And
Yeah.
it's about you and your children and what you teach them. And even if you don't have them, it's just about you and your heart and your soul. And that's the important thing. But I think that you just have to persevere and be honest with yourself. If you know you're not cut out for something after you try, and you get frustrated and go, well, maybe this isn't for me. You have to really be sure you got to that point. When you get to that point, that's okay, because you're going to be glad. You're going to be relieved. You're going to be glad that you did all you could to get there and realize, I don't think I'm cut out for this.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think I can do it. And that's okay. You know, totally
Exactly.
okay.
Yeah. Well, that's great advice. And Deborah, I want to thank you for giving me a few minutes today. It was a real honor for me. Like I said, I lived for the 80s. I love solid gold. And I mean, just the career you've had is remarkable. I mean, you've done things that, are once in a lifetime things, but you did it because you had the passion to do it. And I always believe, more than anything else, you're a very passionate person who had a goal in mind and you set out to do it and you achieved it. So congratulations on a great career. And I really do applaud you for that. And thank you for coming on today. I really
Thank you
appreciate it.
so much. This was a pleasure. A very unexpected pleasure. It's very, very nice. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And folks, there you have it. Like I just said about Deborah Jenssen, there's so many words to describe her, but I think the biggest one is passionate, because from day one, she set out a goal in mind and she has done it. I mean, think of the things she's done. She's worked with Tina Turner. She did a commercial with Lionel Richie. Solid Gold was a big hit in the 80s, and she is as responsible for that as anyone. And why did she do it? Because, like I said, she was passionate. She loved what she did. She wanted to be the best at it, and she never rested on her laurels. And that's very remarkable about this unbelievable human being. For In the Spotlight, I'm Mike Kenichi saying good night, everyone. Okay.